For decades, Burger King has had a strange problem. It calls itself the king, but McDonald's has owned the kingdom. The golden arches are bigger, more famous, and almost impossible to escape. Airports, highways, shopping centers, small towns, giant cities. McDonald's seems to be everywhere, but something unusual is happening in America. In the second quarter of 2026, Burger King's comparable sales in the United States jumped 8.5%. McDonald's grew just 0.8%. That is not a small difference. Burger King grew more than 10 times faster. So after decades of chasing McDonald's, is the king finally winning? The answer is more interesting than a simple yes or no. First, we need to understand what those numbers actually mean. Comparable sales measure how existing restaurants are performing compared with the same period a year earlier. In other words, Burger King did not get that 8.5% simply by opening a pile of new restaurants. Its existing stores were selling more. And that matters because Burger King has spent years trying to fix a very basic problem. People knew the brand. They knew the Whopper. They knew the Crown. But knowing a restaurant exists is not the same as wanting to eat there. Some Burger King locations looked old. Service could be inconsistent. Marketing often felt louder than the actual restaurant experience. Meanwhile, McDonald's had become a machine. Fast service, enormous advertising power, a strong mobile app, loyalty rewards, and a location seemingly waiting around every corner. Burger King needed more than another funny commercial. So it launched a turnaround called Reclaim the Flame. The company committed up to $700 million through the end of 2028. The money goes toward restaurant remodeling, technology, kitchen equipment, building improvements, advertising, and digital upgrades. That sounds boring compared with a giant cheeseburger on a billboard. But it may be exactly why the comeback is working. Because fast food is not only about food, it is about whether the drive-thru moves quickly, whether the fries are hot, whether the restaurant looks clean, whether your order is correct, and whether the burger in your hand looks anything like the burger in the advertisement. Burger King also returned to the one product that gives it a real identity, the Whopper. Instead of trying to become McDonald's with a different logo, Burger King has been putting more attention on the flame-grilled burger that made it famous. The chain has been improving the Whopper experience while remodeling restaurants around a more modern image. That strategy sounds obvious. Make the famous burger better. Yet companies often forget obvious things while chasing trends. McDonald's, meanwhile, has a very different problem. It is not a weak company. Far from it. It is so large that almost every mistake becomes expensive, and almost every new idea has to work across a massive system. McDonald's now has more than 44,000 restaurants in over 100 countries. Burger King has more than 19,700 locations in more than 120 markets. So before we hand Burger King the crown, remember the size difference. McDonald's still has more than twice as many restaurants. In the second quarter alone, McDonald's generated about $37 billion in system-wide sales around the world. Its loyalty program is also enormous. Across 70 loyalty markets, McDonald's had nearly 220 million active loyalty users at the end of the quarter. That is not just a restaurant chain. That is almost a small digital nation with fries. And this explains one of the biggest traps in the Burger King comeback story. Growing 8.5% is impressive. But it is easier to grow quickly when you are starting from a smaller base. Imagine one restaurant sells 100 burgers and another sells 200. The first restaurant adds 10 burgers. The second restaurant also adds 10 burgers. They gained the same number of sales. But the smaller restaurant grew 10% while the bigger restaurant grew only 5%. Percentages can make a challenger look closer than it really is. Burger King is gaining ground. McDonald's still owns much more ground. But the reason McDonald's should care is not the current size of Burger King. It is the direction. At the beginning of 2026, McDonald's comparable sales in the United States were still growing strongly. By the second quarter, growth had slowed to less than 1%. Burger King moved the other way. And this is happening at a difficult time for fast food. For years, chains trained customers to think of fast food as the cheap option. You are not expecting candlelight, table service, or a chef explaining where the potatoes were raised. You wanted something fast, familiar, and affordable. Then prices climbed. Suddenly, customers started looking at a fast food receipt and asking a dangerous question. If this costs almost as much as a sit-down meal, why am I eating it in my car? That question has changed the battle. Cheap promotions alone are no longer enough. Customers are judging the entire package: price, portion size, food quality, convenience, digital rewards, and the feeling that they actually received something worth paying for. Burger King appears to have understood that value is not the same thing as simply being the cheapest. A $5 deal is useless if the customer does not want the food. A $7 meal can feel like a bargain if it is filling, tastes good, and arrives the way the customer expected. That is why improving the Whopper and improving restaurants can work together. One gives customers a reason to visit. The other gives them fewer reasons to regret visiting. McDonald's has been pushing value too, including lower-priced menu options and digital promotions. But its leadership has acknowledged that execution in the United States has not been good enough. The company even appointed a new president for McDonald's USA in August. That does not mean McDonald's is in crisis. In fact, McDonald's still grew revenue and profit during the quarter. It remains one of the most powerful restaurant businesses on earth. But when the market leader starts talking publicly about raising the bar in its biggest market, the challenger has clearly done enough to get its attention. There is also an important difference in what these two brands sell emotionally. McDonald's sells familiarity. The Big Mac, fries, Happy Meals, breakfast, McNuggets, coffee, desserts. It serves families, commuters, children, teenagers, office workers, and people who somehow decided that midnight was the correct time for 20 chicken nuggets. Its menu is a huge ecosystem. Burger King is more concentrated around the idea of the burger itself. The Whopper is not just another item. It is the brand. That can be a weakness because Burger King has fewer giant product franchises. But during a turnaround, it can also be a strength. The message is simpler. Flame-grilled burger. Better restaurant. Better value. Come back and try us again. McDonald's has to protect a giant empire. Burger King only has to convince more people that the king deserves another chance. And right now, that second job may be easier. So is Burger King finally beating McDonald's? If the question is who has the strongest momentum in the United States right now, Burger King wins. 8.5% comparable sales growth versus 0.8% is a clear victory for the quarter. If the question is who has the larger global empire, McDonald's wins easily. More than 44,000 restaurants, enormous system-wide sales, a huge loyalty network, and one of the most recognizable brands on earth do not disappear because of one weak quarter. And if the question is who will win the next decade, we do not know yet. That is what makes this battle interesting. Burger King does not need to destroy McDonald's to succeed. It does not even need to become number one. If its restaurants keep improving, if customers keep returning, and if the Whopper becomes something people actively choose instead of something they simply remember from years ago, Burger King can take market share and become a much more dangerous competitor. McDonald's, meanwhile, has advantages Burger King cannot quickly copy. scale, real estate, digital reach, advertising power, and decades of customer habit. But giants have one weakness. They are very hard to move. Burger King spent years looking like the fast food chain that had fallen behind. Now it is finally moving faster than the leader. The crown still belongs to the golden arches when we measure size. But when we measure momentum, the king is suddenly looking a lot more royal. And for the first time in a long time, McDonald's might want to look over its shoulder. Because Burger King is coming back.